Hello everyone, it is the Redmen Originals podcast. We are back for another week of Liverpool action, which will see the Champions League return as Liverpool continue the chase for number 7. Joining me to have that chat and many more is Chris Pajak, Steve Plunkett and Dan Clubb as well. Busy old week for several of the team. One of these days we'll be able to talk about why that was, but as it is, you can just see the distant battle-scarred looks on Chris and Dan's face, and we'll tread lightly with their emotions. Dan,
yes,
you decided to fill your weekend in the absence of Liverpool Football Club with Liverpool Football Club.
What else are you going to do? You know what I mean? What else are you going to do your weekend? No, I did. I went to both academy matches over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I was down the AXA watching the kids. 18s on Saturday, 21s on Sunday. Results, we won't speak about them. But yeah, nice to watch them anyway. I always like getting down there and familiarising myself with some of the young talent that we've got coming through, because there's a lot of it. But yeah, the Sunday team in particular was a really strong side. I spoke to Barry Lutus as well, the manager of the 21s post-match, and Trey Naoni, Rio Ngamoa, James McConnell, aside really should have done a better job of getting the result over the line, but didn't. But yeah, nice weekend nonetheless, and yeah, a weekend that was needed post last week, I think.
Maybe just avoiding FA Cup football, which I've then subsequently had to swat up on for the Bias Football podcast, which we'll do a little bit later on. Chris, tonight you return to poker action.
Yeah, Bounty Hunter stream tonight, $50 bounty on me head for anyone who knocks me out. Free to sign up, obviously, at GG Poker. So we've put a couple of tweets out and stuff, but I'll be going live at 7:15. The tournament starts at 7:30. I think you got a chance to win £1,000 if you win the tournament tonight anyway. So yeah, come over there if you fancy a chance of knocking me out at poker. $50 bounty on my head. I'm quite looking forward to it, actually. It's been a while.
Yeah, anyone wants to see how good Chris actually is at poker can do just that. Is it like, how many people are in there? Do they have to be on your table as it is to do that?
Yeah, so I think there's 5 or 6 on a table in tonight's stream, and then as people get knocked out, other people will come into the table and all that type of stuff. So it's a proper tournament where I can actually win the £1,000. But I imagine that's going to go on quite a long time to be able to get there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like playing online poker. I like playing poker generally speaking. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Dan, I forgot to mention this. You called yourself the star of the Jurgen Klopp documentary.
Somebody's got to. Yeah, no, listen, very, very, very tongue-in-cheek, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, I do feature prominently for about 2.5 seconds at the start of episode 3.
2.5 seconds.
There's something in that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Sarah when you said it.
I have like a sentence where I describe Liverpool's overwhelming favourites regardless of who we draw in the Europa League last season. That worked out well. But yeah,
You were right though.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, true. I had quite a few messages over the weekend saying, "If I just heard you in it," I was like, "Yeah, that was me. Don't worry about that."
Excellent. Yeah. Does it top me being in the Clean Rooney wag at the dock? I was in it for probably less than 2.5 seconds. So yeah,
you're in it too, Chris. You decided that you found out where yet?
I'm in episode 3, I believe.
Yeah. Big episode. That's the one.
I have not looked into it, but I think mine's a voiceover part.
Okay.
But I've had a couple of messages saying I recognise your voice from the documentary and stuff. I think I've been a couple of times, to be honest.
Is our belt in there more than any of us?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Definitely, in fact. Yeah.
Anyway, Steve, good to have you back as well. I'm sure you've been up to fascinating things.
Yeah, I can't play poker, so that doesn't happen for me. I'm not even going to go there. It'd just be crap. And no football, big void in the weekend. So, yeah. I need it back. Football needs to be back. Shouldn't have weekends without football.
Absolutely. Good job it is coming back. Before we crack on, we have to draw last month's Legend tier prize. It was a signed shirt by Bruce Grobler and Ronnie Whelan. We've got the Whelan names ready to go. If Aaron wants to get it up, yeah, let's give it a spin. Let's have a little drum roll, please, everyone. Ooh. There we go. Congratulations. Elvis Patelvis. Wow, what a name. I think we deserve
medicine for that, you know.
Deserves to win that. It deserves the prize just for the name. Congratulations. Yeah, the signed shirt will be working its way to you. Details on next month's prize will be coming later in the podcast. And while we're here, one more bit of housekeeping. We are currently running a 3-month offer over on redmenplus.com. You head over there, use Captain Tier subscription and use the code POD POD, P-O-D. You can get a free month of everything that we do over on Redmen Plus. Yeah, that is leading up to and beyond the League Cup final with Newcastle, as well as all the documentaries, features, interviews, back catalogue, extra shows, and this week's Bias Football podcast, which is going to be us. Continue to talk about the fallout. We're going to be talking about Anthony Gordon's potential suspension. We're going to talk Manchester United crashing and burning once again, and more besides. So yeah, get it up all free for a month using the code POD. Right. So, Christopher.
Hello.
We played
Newcastle
last week. We didn't play it at the weekend, so we will go. Yeah, honestly, it really genuinely does. But I just want to touch upon it because obviously we've done plenty of stuff on it. There's a final word show if people want to go and check that out on the website and countless other bits in between. It was just a wonderfully composed win. You know, the idea that we're now 13 points clear at the top of the table with it. And I thought the way the midfield stepped up, goals from McAllister and Szoboszlai again, just really showed Liverpool are not messing about. They seem ready to take this all rather more seriously than we probably expected.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the way in which we've been going about our business. Obviously, we've had the game against Manchester City, haven't we, where we changed the way that we were going to play significantly to sort of soak up pressure and give Manchester City the ball, probably against everybody around football saying attack them, myself included, attack them. We sat there and went, no, have the ball, see if you can beat us type of thing. We know what you want to do, we're going to be absolutely brilliant. And then we flip-flopped massively against Newcastle again to just our normal style of play, where we actually, I'm not sure we showed Newcastle any respect whatsoever. And that might be in part because of the Isak not being able to play in the game and all that type of stuff. But also I just think there's a confidence that's sort of rolling down from the manager and the team that it's like the players believe whatever the manager's plan is right now is going to work. Because how can you not after City and how can you not after Newcastle? And there was a point, I think about 25 minutes in, I turned around to Leah, who I went the game with, and was like, what are Newcastle trying to do here? I've got no idea. Because Liverpool just took the game away from them, and it was just brilliant to see. And now you see the way everyone's talking about us. And it just comes across like we're champions-elect. These players believe that if they continue to do what the manager says, they're going to be crowned champions of England this season. And that is just brilliant to see.
It was, Chris asked me that same question as well. Ste post-match, he was like, what were Newcastle trying to do? And the only answer I could come up with was kick it long for Callum Wilson to try and do something. And he had a couple of little bits, and thankfully missed the target or was offside. But yeah, that was it. This is a Newcastle side that they have blown hot and cold a bit throughout the season, but they are a threat. They have got talented footballers there. They are a team that on their day can do the business against anyone. And honestly, they did have there was a lull in the game, I think, rather than them being on top. I don't know about you. From minute one of that game kicking off, I just was so relaxed, so confident in what the Reds were doing.
Yeah, it's shades of when we last won it as well, isn't it? You go into games and you think, come what may, we'll still get through this. There were gears we didn't even get into. It just seemed like if they improved and had they nicked one, you just felt they'd gone on and taken the game away from them. And I think that's down to what you said about players believing in what's being said to them, and also about being economic with how much energy you use, because we do need to use these players. We know he doesn't make wholesale changes, so it will be the same names that go again. If you can win a game strolling around the park, for the last 15, 20 minutes, you could have given the centre-backs a deck chair each and they had nothing to do. Yeah. It was like that. So it's interesting because I've never thought Newcastle have a specific game plan. It's get the ball out to Anthony Gordon, see if he can roast your fullback and see what comes off the back of that. And obviously they've got a major goal threat in Isak, but you look at them and you think, Guimarães is a good player. He's got no legs. You can run off him all day long. Joe Linton is a physical presence. Although he didn't play, run off him all day long as well. So I watched Newcastle, and we've had this conversation in a podcast like this and about Eddie Howe and what is he and what does he become. And I can't see specifically what Newcastle ever want to do. Dan is dual-pronged, isn't it, what they offer?
Yeah, Dan is Eddie Howe's biggest fan. Certainly he's on the opposite end of the spectrum.
That bit's true, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Is this Liverpool dominance? Is this Newcastle, flat corpulence, or just a lack of Isak, or
I think a lack of Isak and a lack of Joe Linton is two big misses for Newcastle's first day, especially when you come into a Liverpool side at Anfield that's perving right now, and it has the belief. That's a big word at the moment for me, because I think that is that's what sets us apart, as well as the quality and as well as the fitness of all the players right now and some of the form and the quality throughout of it. But I think what really makes us now, title winners, champions elect and stuff like that, is the fact that we do just have this utter inbuilt confidence that whatever comes our way, we can find a way of negotiating a way around it. And for Newcastle to come to Anfield, it was a big game for them, not so much in terms of Premier League. Obviously, the points on the board would be massively important, but I think in terms of what's to come down the line with the Carabao Cup final, they had looked at it as an opportunity to maybe scope out where they could hurt us and ways in which that's possible. Without Joe Linton and certainly without Alexander Isak, that felt properly difficult for them. I think they're two integral parts of what they do. No Sven Botman at the back either. That's a spine of a football team right there. As much as we might not think the world of Joe Linton as a footballer, I think their midfield three of Tonali, Bruno and Joe Linton is what makes them tick and makes them. But they
need all three of them.
They need all three of them. If one component of that is missing, I don't think they're anywhere near the team that they are. And I think once we'd wrestled control of that midfield battle, which we did with consummate ease, really, they were never really in the game thereafter.
It felt a little bit like, obviously they got the spanking the other week, and then they restored pride by them handing out one themselves, and it put to bed that whole all their eyes are on the cup final. But I think it almost like they put it to bed, but it's still true. Yeah, so like when it comes round to it, they didn't want to necessarily. I think the League Cup final is so big for them that it's going to occupy the manager's thoughts, the players' thoughts, and whatever. Whereas I like the fact that it doesn't occupy. It doesn't feel like anyway, Chris, and we'll find out over the next week or so for us. But it doesn't feel like that way for Liverpool, for the fans, for the players. I'm looking forward to the League Cup final. It doesn't feel like any sense of pressure attached to it at all.
No, I think I'm the same. It will do on the day. It will do, a couple of days out and stuff like that. But I think there's bigger fish to fry for Liverpool at the moment, isn't there? Bigger prizes ahead, and you need to stay focused for it. And that's probably a good thing, because you want, and the managers always say this, whatever football club you're at, you want them taking a game at a time. For somebody like a Newcastle who haven't really got those other prizes to keep focused on, they probably are going to have a few ups and downs between us and the cup final. Puts a lot of pressure on those players who aren't used to playing under the rigours of stress that Liverpool players are used to playing under week in, week out as well. So it's really interesting. I mean, listen, there might be a school of thought that Newcastle played so shit not to give anything away for the cup final game, because the honest lot's going, well, they're not playing like that again, surely. Like, there's no way they can do that. And now they're going to have Anthony Gordon missing, we think, for the cup final as well, and stuff like that. It's really difficult for Eddie Howe to, I think, how to move forwards, because there'll be a lot of players there who got absolutely, who will feel terrible after the way that we beat them, and almost like, can we do the same in the cup final? Can we beat them before we've taken to the field? Because that's honestly what the Anfield game felt like. We didn't need to play the game. We'd already won it, and the crowd being up for it had a massive impact as well. And that's the one thing for the cup final that'll be different, won't it? It'd be, you'd guess, a 50-50 split, and their fans are going to be loud, and that's good, because that's what Carabao Cup finals need. They need two sets of fans who both want it. And we've been to semi-finals. Aston Villa, was it 2012? Or was it one of those years where we got beaten by Aston Villa?
It was after that, but
and we didn't turn up as fans for that game. You need to be able to be pushed and stuff like that, and not feel like it's going to be dead easy. And I think the Newcastle fans, even though we'll think we've got the better side, the Newcastle fans will put it in us that we have to get up for this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, they might be feeling a little bit horrible about everything. One man who isn't coming out of that Newcastle game, Steve, was Luis Diaz. It was, if your critique of Diaz is that he's not scoring enough goals, that wouldn't have put any of that to bed. But actually, it was even watching it back, as I was just so enamoured with Szoboszlai's performance and McAllister's performance, that in the ground I didn't think too much about Diaz. But then watching it back the next day, Luis Diaz, I've missed that one. I've missed him out on the left, fighting and scrapping and battling and kicking and harassing and skinning 2 and 3 men and getting hauled to the ground. It was the Luis Diaz that we love so much back on the pitch.
And it's Luis Diaz that seems to rally when somebody that potentially would have his places around him. So you look at who was on the opposition, Anthony Gordon, much written about that, although they played him on a different side to Diaz, certainly for the first half. And it's kind of like he's got this, it's a South American thing, it's a street fighter in them, shall we say, where it's kind of, that's the challenge and I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna do it. And the amount of times he won the ball almost in a left-back position and gave us an out ball by himself, by beating players, as you just alluded to, going past 2 or 3 and then getting hauled down so he can reset and get into position and play off the back of that. Really, really nice to see. His problem is always going to be that Cody Gakpo's kind of in his way. And if he'd been fit, I don't know if Diaz would have played, but I'm glad he did. It was one of those performances where you look at it and think, because there's a lot written about his contract status at the moment, isn't there, if you believe what you read, and he wants another one, and playing like that, you'd probably give him another one, because that was a really, really good performance. Lots been said about the left side defensively this season. Yeah. And he really contributed massively down that side.
Yeah, I just want to rewind things a little bit because obviously the Newcastle game was the Newcastle game. It was the most recent one, but actually I want to rewind conversation a fortnight almost, Dan. And obviously we've been talking through it as a live thing, really. Steve mentioned it when he came in the office before. Last time you were on, some question marks about how it might go. 2 weeks ago, we would have been sat here a bit down in the dumps. It is... Yeah, fascinating to go back, and Liverpool's recent results, even going as far back as taking it back to Plymouth, and I could not have given less of a shite about that game, and I've made that perfectly clear. But a defeat still feels like a defeat. The draw with Everton, the worst win on earth against Wolves, a draw with Aston Villa, and that's mad to think that here we are. Now feeling like, as Chris said, champions elect, but that is insane that it's been, a fortnight and our fortunes feel like they've completely and utterly changed. And effectively in that time, we've won 2 games of football. It's not a lot when you really, really think about it, but I think the psychology around it, I think the general feeling, the way that the team are playing, it's not just 2-0 wins, which is the most steady way to win a football match ever. It's the fact that you're getting the clean sheets, players are coming to the forefront. We had a couple of injuries, but we seem to be managing them all right. It's wild just how much it's all shifted.
Massively so. In a roundabout way, it feels like this is the run. And it was, we sat here 3 weeks ago, if you go a little bit further back than that, and looked at the 5 games in 15 days, like, what does this look like? How do we come out of the back of this? Like, what is the points difference at that point? We managed to extend the deficit. It feels like it is the run that's won us the title, which is remarkable. When you can sort of, in isolation, when you look at some of the results, you would never have imagined that. But yeah, just to get out of it unscathed and then some. Obviously, a lot helped by what our main rivals, so protagonists of the title, have been able to do or not do, more to the point. But I think the mood and sort of the morale lift and boost because of the last 2 performances, because they have been proper performances, like consummate, professional, get the job done, we're miles better than you, showing our teeth, really. I've loved every aspect of the City and Newcastle ones in particular, but to go to the Etihad and do what we did to them in the manner that we did in terms of changing our style completely second half, and then to have a Newcastle side that were about a bit of a dress rehearsal for the cup final, as mentioned. A lot of people are talking about them as being really dangerous, and just to puff our chest out and go, we're miles better than you, like that, to me, was all the proof that I needed that we're doing what nobody else can do in the country right now. And that's just be the best team on a footy pitch at any given situation.
It's funny how circumstances can conspire against you, or, for the first time it feels like they've conspired against others, for the longest time. Chris, I was just looking back at this time last year, going back to the start of February, Arsenal... I'm trying to think of the time scale on this. Am I right in remembering that they had that warm weather training break before they played us, or did it happen around that period? Because they beat us 3-1, and the question mark at Arsenal was, where are the goals? Have they got enough goals? And then all of a sudden they beat us, and then I don't think they stopped scoring until obviously City inevitably won the title. And that is the point at which Liverpool's squad is about, because we beat Chelsea the week before, and Robertson and Trent come on, and I remember thinking, this is a cheat code here. We're battering Chelsea. Conor Bradley scored that, in that he was brilliant. We're sorted here, and then within 2 weeks, Trent got injured again. Salah ended up being injured again. We played the cup final with all that mass injuries that we had, and yet it almost feels like the flipping verse is happening this time around. Arsenal are the ones who can't seem to put the ball in the back of the net, and we're pairing.
Yeah, we are. I think, Slots and his team deserve a lot of credit here, don't they, when you're thinking about the injuries and stuff, because I think it's probably fair to say the last few seasons we've always had those injuries. Maybe it's not been quite as laser focused as it was last year. But we've dealt with our injuries well this season. We have had injuries. I'm not saying we haven't, but we've always had enough cover. And I think, as a fan anyway, I would have sat here, and I did sit here in the summer going, we've got to get a centre-back on. We've got to get a centre-back. We can't just have these three players. Now, I do feel maybe we've been a little bit fortunate. Maybe it's been well managed, but we've never really been in a situation where we've been fucked at centre-half so far this season already. But, we've come close, but we've not done it. And whereas everybody else is having those problems, is having those injuries, it might be luck, it might be sports science, and it might be Arne Slot. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody outside of Liverpool.
Well, this is one of the things that was sold.
But we were told he
Yeah.
looks after his players really, really well. And it looks like that's the way that it is. Obviously, fingers crossed, touch wood, etc., that it continues. But the way he's managed his squad throughout the season, the way he's made changes when he needs to, stuck with Robertson for 3 games last week when he needed to, when you were questioning whether he should, he still did it. And Robertson did have enough in the tank. He's got a real understanding of where everyone, I think, in his squad is up to. So obviously, there's good communication with the player, with the sports science staff and stuff as well, and they're enacting it on the field as well. And we're resting in games, man. Like the game against Newcastle for me was like, I don't know if anyone watches the Tour de France or whatever, but it's like the finish line sometimes for the Tour de France is 25 kilometres before the end. It's the top of the mountain. Like that's what Liverpool felt like against Newcastle. Race up the fucking mountain and just fucking freewheel down. And that's what we did against Newcastle for me. Yeah. We got up there, I went, see you later, and just fucking coasted the rest of the game and didn't have to do any work whatsoever. Yeah. That's what Slot's been doing.
I just wanted to kind of illustrate some of the points, because the 21st of February last year, we played Luton at Anfield. We beat them 4-1, and there was such a sense of positivity in that game. Van Dijk got a goal in that one, and he becomes the hero of the week, scoring the winner in the League Cup final as well. And I was thinking like, this could still all work out for us. The players that we were missing at that time for that game: Jota, Matip, Bajcetic, Szoboszlai, Thiago, Trent, and then I think Curtis, Darwin and Alisson were all unavailable around that time as well.
Harvey collapses at the end of that one. That's the one. I think he just hits the deck at the full time.
We ran him into the ground over that period. We then carried that into the League Cup final, and Gravenberch gets injured during the game. I think does Endo get injured at some point during that as well? But regardless, this is where it's well famed that we bring the kids in and we get it over the line. That ends up being as good as it gets for us. This doesn't feel to me, and listen, there's 3 games of football between here and the League Cup final this time around. God knows anything could happen in that. But yeah, it felt last year like we were really back to 13-14-esque, flying by the seat of our pants, roaring forward on pure emotion and magic and spitting sawdust. And this is not that at all. Again, it goes back to a sense of confidence. I'm actually looking forward to the things, the challenges that are ahead. I don't feel any sense of trepidation about them.
And the game you referenced, the Luton game, was very much the Anfield factor, because for nearly an hour, that was nothing like comfortable. And then we just took it away towards the end. It's different now. That nobody can ever knock what we did under Klopp and the way that the crowd played their part in that. But this does feel different. This feels like it's more, the players have got more control over what we do now. It's not fly by the seat of your pants stuff at times anymore. It's all done, as you made the point, with his backroom team and himself. He spends a lot of time on the training ground. They know exactly what he wants, again, why they believe in everything he says. And it just feels different. It just feels like, go back even further to a documentary where Graham Souness speaks of the 84 Cup final in Rome. We didn't think anyone could beat us. We went into every game feeling like there was nobody out there that could lay a glove on us. You see that week in, week out with this team. That's the way they feel. And one league defeat in the whole season for a game that the manager clearly misjudged the effect of travelling on the South American contingent. He learned a lot from that. gone out throughout the rest of the season, we've been sublime. So I think it comes down to a culmination of many, many things, and that would be, you referenced it just a second ago, managing minutes, managing players' output, managing their effort. There's an old saying in football, don't run when you don't have to, and that's exactly what we do. So, in regards to that, I think we're in a completely different place. As I said before, as much as I love Jurgen Klopp, we don't approach the games in the same way. They don't need the crowd in the way that Jurgen Klopp's teams perhaps did at times. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean the crowd don't do it, because they turn up there every week to do that, but I don't think the players rely on it. I think there's more to it than that now.
I mean, not to put too negative a spin on it, I think everything you said there is absolutely spot on. Look, the atmosphere is, if we're doing a sort of general state of play here, it is still an odd one to I really struggle to wrap my head around who we are and what we are, and I still do have this underlying fear that we're a bit, I don't know, it's a bit more generic now how we conduct ourselves watching football. Like, the football has to be brilliant almost for us to be super loud and noisy, but at the same time, Dan, we've been put through the ringer for so many years that I said at the start of the season, if there's just a simpler way for us to win titles, and the trade-off is that we don't have to be dead emotionally and physically by the end of it, then let's definitely try that for a bit.
Yeah, it feels like we're living it now, doesn't it? But I'm with you a little bit, I must admit. I quite enjoyed the rollercoaster ride that was, and the heavy metalness of the previous one, but that's not to say I don't love this new in control, we're in sort of control of our own destiny approach. It's not flawless all the time, I think it's fair to say. It's definitely not the finished article, but yeah, it's difficult, certainly when you're in the ground, which I've been a few times this season. It's difficult to remove yourself and to retrain your brain, really, into thinking, okay, we're not as required here, to your point. Because it does feel, I do think there will still come times in games whereby we do need to get up for it. And listen, we're at the time of the season now. Listen, the league might be a mere formality from here on out. We might not need to go hell for leather at any point in the Premier League. That's certainly the hope and the expectation and how it looks. But when it comes to Champions League nights and what have you, that might be a different kettle of fish altogether. We might need to get as up for it as we've ever been in some of the second legs and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a difficult one for me. It's definitely a different feeling watching this Liverpool to previous Liverpools. I'm not sure it's better or worse, really. It's just different for me.
Can I have a different opinion to that?
I mean, absolutely.
I think we'd have been exactly the same in the league winning season had we
been in it.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
Because the point gap makes makes it different. If this and therefore, if this was 1 or 2 points, you would be in a completely different Anfield this season.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? I honestly think that's the case.
Massively different though.
You watch what happens when Liverpool go a goal down. The fucking crowd gets loud like it's always done. It's just that we're not in that situation anywhere near as often. Yeah. And guess what? We remember, recency bias. We were in that situation a lot last year. Far too many times. Which is why we were so often
16 times,
needed more than anything else.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it felt like we were great at that. You know what I mean? We buy into that underdogs, that lifting the team and taking it. That's what Liverpool do better than anyone. Yeah. Listen, at the minute we do football better than anyone, and that's fine. We've got no issue with that whatsoever. But it's difficult, isn't it?
We're not playing like underdogs.
No, we're great favourites.
And that's part of it, I think, and then Jurgen was right to tap into that, because the City, we love it. We love being the underdogs. We love, standing up and puffing our chests up and, feel like you're looking up at the underside of some bigger bully's chin kind of thing. But it doesn't feel like that this year. It feels like we're adapting to the idea of being the best in the business, and he's telling the players you're the best in the business, so go and conduct yourself as such. There's just going to be, again, it's just for me, there's just a slight, I don't think we've quite figured out how to do it in the stadium just yet. When it's good, but we've yet to truly have one of those them nights. Now, do you get them in February or January or whatever? Probably not. So, it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see,
I tell you what, we had Real Madrid and we had City in the same week, and those were as loud as anything.
Yeah, I don't think I can say in the last 20 years I've not been in a group stage Champions League game that's been as loud as Real Madrid. Yeah, I mean, I suppose
because you compare them to Barcelona in the semi-finals.
I suppose it's a
group stage games aren't comparable.
Yeah, I suppose you might be right on that, and maybe it's just, the last time we played Real Madrid, well, again, it was a knockout game. You're right. I think the group stage thing, because it's a different competition, effectively, isn't it? But look, I'm not saying the atmosphere's been crap. As we have had some great atmospheres. It will be very interesting to see whether it continues to build and becomes more of a thing, because it goes back to the style of play thing. We started off, the atmosphere against Newcastle started off brilliantly, but then we were so much better than them. It went and just became a baseline hubbub for most of that until then we played a bit better and, you know, got everyone excited about it again. I'm splitting hairs here, by the way, over the problems, and I said this is an interesting problem to have, but again, if we're just going to lay it out on general thoughts and feelings on it, that's my one. If I want it all, that's the one thing I feel that we're not
down on a little bit.
Yeah, without a doubt. But equally, you know, with that, McAllister's now got a song, and you know, Cara Bradley's got a chance, and we're having a go.
Endo's getting sung at the game.
Endo's starting to get, when you're dead right, you know, we're starting to get to that part of the season now where this is where it gets, where we should come into our own. We come to the forefront, you know, the journey to Wembley's not going to hurt that. We've got PSG to look forward to. There'll be a big game under the lights in a week's time, which could add to the mythos and stuff. But yeah, if you're watching, I only thought if you've been in the ground a few times this season, always good to get what people think on it. Just to spin things over to Arsenal, Ste, and I touched upon it with the injuries. It is nice to see that. Not wishing injuries upon teams, but we've had to face that so many times in recent years. We run our team into the ground, and then, as Jurgen said when we interviewed them last year, kind of like paid the bill the year after for it. It feels like Arsenal are doing it, but there was a moment 2 weeks ago where it was like it was still working for them. They were still finding ways to get goals. Even goes back to a week or so ago when Mikel Merino scoring the goals against Leicester. These last two results for them, you know, West Ham and Forest, is what's meant to happen when you are a quite defensive-minded team who rely on set pieces and don't have major attackers available to you or your first-choice set-piece taker. So I'm pleased that they haven't got some like mad magic thing that's kept them in contention. What's happening to them is what's supposed to happen to them.
Yeah, and we've been down that road, haven't we? As you quite rightly pointed out. And the thing with them is, you know, you start the season, manager sits down with his director of football and says, right, I've got everything I need. This is the season. We've been sort of bridesmaid twice. We're gonna take that extra step. Season starts. It's clear Manchester City are not at the races. Everyone in the club gets excited about that, and then Liverpool re-emerge, and we didn't suddenly come from nowhere. We always had a very good squad. Certain things have gone in our favour. We have been slightly fortuitous with injuries. God forbid we ever lost Van Dijk for a period of time. We've been lucky with that, you know, and it's nice to see it. It's good to feel it, but ultimately, when all is said and done, if your manager's sitting down saying, "I'm prepared for the season and I've got this and I've got that," and then you lose your key player in Saka for 3 months and you've got no contingency to replace him. We've got 5 forwards in the club, 6 if you'd included Dan's.
7 with Dan's, Chiesa,
6 if you include Chiesa.
I was certain that's what he was going to say.
Which honest not absolutely clean as not.
But the point being that if we lose one key player, there's a go-to, and there's a couple of break glass options there. There's nothing in Arsenal's squad that allows them to prepare for losing a player of that magnitude, and he is a great player, you can't argue with that. But ultimately, at the end of the season, when all this is played out and we know where that's going, they're going to sit down and say, why did you say your squad was good enough? Because clearly it wasn't. And that's, the fans will do that, because we've done that for the last 4 years, sitting here. Some are going, we need this, we need that, we need this, and we need that. And the Arsenal fans are saying, we need a centre forward. They've been saying that for years. Top class managers are stubborn, and Jurgen Klopp was stubborn. He admits he was stubborn.
Yeah.
Dalglish was stubborn. Shankly was stubborn. They're all like that, and they want to do it their way or no way at all. And Arsenal are suffering from that right now. So I agree, it's great to see it, and we're in a wonderful position as a result of it.
It was just, again, it's a matter of a change in such a short space of time, Dan. But it was like all the media was looking at us, particularly after the derby. And I remember even said it myself, you know, the way the players reacted and the manager reacted, and you know, we'll see. We're one game into Slot's ban. You know, we'll talk about Southampton a little bit later on, but all the eyes are on this is Liverpool coming undone, and they really should have been on Arsenal because somehow they were taped together. And yeah, that is the nature of the game. Instead of, I think it feels like if we were going to absolutely implode, then after the derby was, you know, and the weeks and up until now, Man City away. You don't beat Man City away like that. if you are gonna, I think, gonna completely catastrophically fuck it up.
No, I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, and that again speaks to what Arne Slot and his coaching staff have managed to sort of garner in terms of that belief, and in terms of that confidence, and in terms of that, just the complete and utter control of our destiny. It feels like in the situation that we keep finding ourselves in, and Arsenal haven't had that in the same way. Steve's point about Man City falling off a cliff and it should have been Arsenal to be there to pick up the pieces is absolutely spot on. And
I've been making the Arsenal Champions Elect joke all season long, because it should have been them.
Yeah, of course it should. And we've to the outside world emerged out of nowhere and just managed to sort of take advantage of both teams' misfortunes. But that's not really the case. We've had a very good squad. Arne's not been a pain to stress how good a squad he inherited. What he's managed to do with it has been nothing short of remarkable. I always refer back to one of Jurgen Klopp's. I know a lot of us have sort of been poring over the Klopp documentary and what have you, and some of his comments. He made a great sort of farewell line once he left his office for the final time. He said, this group of lads will be fine, or maybe even more, which has kind of resonated over the weekend, because clearly that's the world we're living in now. But I always refer back to, I think it's before we even knew Arne Slot was going to be the guy. It certainly was, because obviously he was the guy that announced him to us basically on the pitch. He said, as long as the next guy can sort of shore up the defence a little bit or make us a bit more solid, we'll be absolutely fine. And it feels like, obviously there's more to it than that, but it feels like that's where Arne Slot's gone to first. And he's made us more solid. He's given us that, again, that confidence and that inward belief that we are the real deal. We are the best team that's doing it at the minute. And again, in any situation, any circumstance, we did have a bit of a mini wobble there. I think the Wolves' second half performance, Villa, Everton, a lot of teams would have struggled to get back on track after that. Yeah. We were the opposite. We go to City and do what we did to City, and then Newcastle at home. It speaks so highly of what we are as a football team.
The context of it's important, isn't it? I think, because if we'd lost to City, then you clutch it all together as a terrible run of form. Because whereas the Everton one in the cold light of day was just one of them mad ones. We were well better than Everton on the day, and they got a bolt from the blue, a heavenly moment sent to give them something to fondly look back on the time at Goodison Park. Villa was another game where, again, there were times in that game where I thought we were really, really good as well. But yeah, you get now to look back and look at the positives of them, because Liverpool turned it round and made sure that they weren't the beginning of a catastrophic collapse, more that a cautionary shot across the bow to learn from.
It's much wiser to look back with more time. To look back on over, isn't it? That's what it comes down to. Which, as football fans, so reactionary to what happens in the moment in games, that you look back at Everton straight away, it's a dagger in the heart. You look back at Villa, it's a dagger in the heart. We're not getting back up from this. A week later, we've got a bigger gap at the top of the table. And the dagger in the heart went straight through, missed an artery and went into fucking Arteta behind us. And he stood there dying from it, like, you know what I mean? So that's what it comes down to.
Stood off the side laughing and it ricochets off and it's...
That's what it is though, isn't it? Because, I showed you this at last week. Like, I'm getting sent points gaps that we need to be ahead for all the games for us to wrap it up. First thing I did, we looked at it and went... Well, that doesn't take Arsenal into consideration.
No, you're right.
This is like best case scenario. How many points we have to be for every ground to win in at? And Arsenal's just going to lose points between now and the end of the season. Guess what? Because that's what they've done all season long.
Yeah.
It's one of them, isn't it? Where we need to be able to take a step back. We need to be able to trust the process. And it's difficult to trust when you've got a new manager, because you don't see how his team performs at the end of the season. You're still working things out. You're still maybe having question marks about atmosphere. You're unsure about how we're seeing games out. The manager might have been, because now he just uses Endo every time, and I still don't think we've conceded a goal when Endo's been brought on late in games. And he's bringing him on earlier and earlier, so that's shutting up the shop even more.
He's going to do it from minute one.
Honestly,
game done.
Fucking 0-0. Done. Listen, it's just fucking amazing. And to go back to the Arsenal thing, and I think what Steve was saying was absolutely spot on. Let's not forget here, guys, it's not like we haven't had injuries. No. Our goalkeeper missing for a quarter of the season so far. You know what I mean?
Endo's played centre-half for us this season.
Even Konate's missed a quarter of the games, probably in the Premier League, that we've had so far. The fact is, we've built a better squad than Arsenal. And we've got a better team than Arsenal. And that is why they're behind us.
People people did that fucking thing that Rio Ferdinand did when we finished third in the COVID season and went, they went, Man United finished with Liverpool, therefore Man United are better than Liverpool, completely failing to take into account that if we got like half of the players back fit, we'd be better at what we did. And this is the thing, we'll never truly know what that side could have achieved last year if Klopp had just stuck it out to the end of the season, or if we had just a fraction more luck with injuries. But when Klopp announced he was leaving, Liverpool were top of the league. So it's almost like from the outside, and none of us were really prepared to go to bat for this point in the summer because of the Klopp factor and because of the injuries that we'd suffered and because of just general anxiety. But it isn't now, and we'll see obviously as the season progresses, if we achieve our ultimate aims, it is kind of, we probably will be able to look back and go, what we asked about, look how good this, because he's not changed the squad.
I honestly think the biggest problem that we've had in the past, that maybe Arsenal are going through right now, is looking for those excuses. I've had it where we used to talk about it all the time when we worked in restaurants. You have a quiet night, you look for an excuse. Oh, training. Oh, there's something on at the arena miles away that has an impact on it. Why Liverpool had injuries. Yeah, guess what? So did fucking every other team in the league that season. It's just one of them. The fact of the matter is, you weren't good enough. Now, you either weren't good enough in planning for injuries that happen during a football season, i.e. you didn't buy the players that you needed to buy the players to get you to a league title. The other teams were just better than you. You had misfortune, yada, yada, yada. You had a man sent off here. That's his fault, nobody else's. Referees, yada, yada, yada. Every team in the league has to deal with all of those things. The one who deals with everything the most and the best wins the league. Liverpool right now are dealing with everything better than everybody else. Yeah. And that could be because we signed a player to a contract, could be because we signed a player 6 years ago. Doesn't fucking matter. We did it the best this season. And next season, Arsenal doesn't mean Arsenal are going to be any better. Arsenal could have the same problems at the end. It's how you react to those problems.
Yeah. I stumbled upon a random Arsenal Substack that was recommended to me, and it was about their injuries. And I read it, and because I never really think about this. Everyone knows that FTV exists. I know the various YouTube things, and it's stuff that filters into your timeline. Is much easier when it's visual in that way. But it was a big long read, reminiscent of, because we're blessed as Liverpool fans with so many talented writers, and Josh Williams is doing great stuff. We've had Paul Tompkins for 2 decades doing all this. But it was that, like Chris saying, every club has almost got its own inbuilt excuses for why it's not working out, and you did right. We've been there. We've run through them all ourselves. It's just so refreshing to be here again, 2 weeks on from feeling like everything was going to be dead, and instead to see we are.
Sorry, Steve. Our season could have been so much different if we decided to just let Kelleher go when he wanted to go. But we made the decision not to let him go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's so many of those sliding door moments throughout the course of a season.
The thing is, it took us 30 years to get over all these excuses because of the gap between winning titles, and there's a lot of excuses over the years. It'll be our season this season, and we'll buy that player, and we'll buy that player, the likes of Stan Collymore and people like that. You thought actually those could be the signings that make the difference. Torres, people along the lines of that. This is kind of 3 years in for Arsenal doing what we did for 30 years. So we're bored of it now, and we recognise our place in all of that. And there were seasons when you couldn't believe you were playing 2 centre midfielders at centre back, and then one of them's hammy exploded during the game, and he's gone for 3 months. But we were told at the time, get on with it. So that has to apply to everybody. Get on with it, and it comes down to what we've all alluded to. If you've got a squad of 25 players and you've got one decent right-sided player and you're playing attacking 3, where do you go when you lose that person? So.
We've got the question to answer ourselves, and I've done for 5 years.
And that'll come again, won't it? Obviously, but the fact of the matter is that you're right. We're doing everything that a football club should do better than everybody else. That's the perfect way to sum that up.
And there's also sure, but also luck is a factor. And we have been luckier this year than we have been in other, and that's I don't want to say that's the key factor, because it totally and utterly feels like you're putting a thumb in the eye for all the people who've worked really hard behind the scenes at Liverpool and stuff. But you need it. You definitely need to have things go in your way. It is those small moments, and it just feels like it's about time. it feels too long since we've had this. I'm just bored of Jurgen Klopp coming out and talking about curses. Like, it feels like there's a curse at the training ground and all this kind of stuff. Wouldn't it be nice to just have a season where there was no curse and you didn't feel like everything was conspiring against you? And so much of it is planning and preparation, or the work that gets, when you don't understand what's happening, you attribute it to random outside factors instead. But yeah, you need a slice of luck, and it feels like the luck is shining upon us this season. It's not before time.
Well, you make your own luck.
Yeah.
There's that as well.
Ruben Peters deserves a lot of credit for this, I think. The track record of final, we touched on it before, of keeping players fit and available was phenomenal. And I think Dom Szoboszlai will attest to that being the case again, because, again, all 5 games, every single minute he played over that 15-day period. And covered every single player to go along the way as well. Like, what we're doing with the squad right now, and it's a little bit of management, it's a little bit just how fit and prepared they were. I've never seen anything like it.
It's also an element of when you're 13 points clear, players want to play. When you're 13 points
Helps.
behind and you've got that little niggle and you think, I'll sit this one out this week. We've got Liverpool, for instance, if you're playing against us. And look at Phil Neal, 400 and odd games consecutively. Well, if he missed a game, he didn't play for months. So it's a mentality, it's a siege mentality that actually we're going to do this, and that little thing I want to talk to someone about, that'll sort itself out and go away.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, definitely. Let's have a little look at some of the general numbers for Liverpool. I'll get the league table up momentarily, which is as good a place to start as anywhere. I don't know whether you've noticed, Liverpool are top of the pile.
Look at that.
And again, it's funny because it is 13 points, and I feel much more comfortable talking about 13 points now, even though Arsenal do have a game in hand, and that, because that is the reality of it. 10 points is an absolutely magnificent lead, and we'd be pairing over the fact that it's that. But as we talked about with Arsenal, it does feel more likely to go 14 or 16
I'd say so.
than it does feel likely to go 10, 7, etc.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the goal difference factor is a factor in that as well, of course. But yeah, I'm definitely in that boat now. And that fills me with almost as much confidence as watching Liverpool play than anything else, because I back us to win, certainly with the home games we've got left remaining on our particular fixture schedule. But yeah, I just don't see Arsenal being anything like perfect. And as Chris mentioned it earlier on, like, we're getting sent possible dates, possible games where we could clinch the title officially. Mathematically, nobody's taken into account that Arsenal are almost destined to drop more points along the way. Because again, with you, I'm happy to say 13 points, because them winning games of football is far from a formality now.
Yeah, I mean, completely on that one. Just actually, I'll get Arsenal's fixtures up because I think it's an interesting.
Got Chelsea coming. That's their game in hand. I think Chelsea think about it.
Well, they haven't drawn with obviously Forest in the last game. They've got PSV in the Champions League to come tomorrow. They play the first leg on that one. Their game in between is Man United away. And look, I can't sit here, in good conscience and make any strong claim for Man United having something positive to take from that football match. However, that rivalry, Arsenal seem to have this ability to stoke up really hateful rivalries with other football teams. Their one with United battle has always baffled me a little bit. But that will be a thing, Chris. They're going to have to go to Old Trafford, and we often talk about how the Everton derby is one extra Big Six sort of game that we have to contend with. Now, that isn't the case, because that's theoretically two Big Six teams playing against one another.
You've got a manager fighting against the sack, though, haven't you?
Yeah, which one?
Both of them. I'll rephrase that. You've got two managers fighting against the sack.
But yeah, that again, Old Trafford will get up for that, and it will be more than if it was just a normal big game of football.
Oh yeah, it's a massive game for them. Obviously the rivalry's been going on for the best part of 25-30 years, hasn't it, between Arsenal and Manchester United. So I think that's a really tough fixture for them. I think the result yesterday in the FA Cup probably helps Manchester United, and therefore helps us in Manchester United's stead. So that will be big. It's going to be interesting to see how Arsenal play it again, because they're just running on empty at the moment, aren't they? And I think that having played football to a terrible standard, when you are being asked to go and go and go again, and there's nothing on the end at the end of it, it becomes harder and harder to keep going back to that well. Keep making that one final sprint. Keep going for the football. United players are going to have that problem as well, unfortunately.
Well, the Champions League stuff for them stays interesting, because I think on paper, look, PSV is a much more favourable draw than most. I think you'd have certainly rather have had PSV again over PSG. You know, to be simplistic with it. If they get that wrong, which they could do because it's the Champions League and it's a knockout, and I've been to Eindhoven, and it's a good fan base there, and they are a team capable. Let's say they get through it. I mean, they've got Real Madrid to look forward to, which is, you know,
or Atleti.
Or yeah, okay, yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, either way,
that's got 0-0 all over Atletico Arsenal, hasn't it?
But there's going to come a point potentially in the next couple of weeks, if they get through PSV and if they drop any more points against United or Chelsea or Fulham, that are the games that they've got coming up, then all their eggs go into the Champions League basket and they can't not. And so it's then, are they getting players?
This point around Easter, by the way, just for the...
Yeah.
You're looking for a resurrection?
Well, no, eggs in baskets. If it's around Easter, even better.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, they've got all of their hopes go into the idea of having to knock out Real Madrid with, you know, will Saka be back by then? Hey, maybe. Could Martinelli be back? And hey, maybe. But what are their levels at? And so yeah, it's. Yeah, I'm happy. It feels like over the next couple of weeks, we will know whether Arsenal have got any last fight.
And if you're being realistic, they might already be there because they've got to make a point a game back, and I don't see them doing that. Just don't see it happening. That's if we throw points away, which I don't see happening either. It's tough because PSV have got nothing to lose. They're dangerous because when teams have got nothing to lose, it makes them dangerous. The fans will get up for it. The team will come into it thinking, there's no pressure on us here. We're not expected to get through this and that. And in things like Champions League games, that makes life dangerous. I mean, if we get to a stage where we're playing Villa Park in a two-legged quarter-final, that's not a great fixture because that makes them dangerous because they've got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
and that's the reality where Arsenal find themselves. They may have already internally decided, look, this is it. Let's be honest. But whilst Real Madrid did well to beat City also created loads of chances against them, and we were all at the game at Anfield.
Yeah,
and within 15 minutes, if you'd never seen football before, you'd never believe Real Madrid who they were.
Yeah,
totally consumed them. That was it. So,
and that was just Conor Bradley.
Yeah, smashing that tackle on it.
They lost again at the weekend, Madrid, didn't they?
Yeah, they're not
third, I think, in La Liga now.
Yeah.
So there's lots to unfold. I think
I'd still rather never have to play them again in the Champions League.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. If we could disband them, I'd be there signing the forms.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So I think Arsenal might already be where you've just said they are. I think if they're being realistic, you kind of. What are you doing sitting down with your players saying, let's run that down because this is a Liverpool side that's not going to give up that many points? It would be, touch wood, it wasn't going to happen, but it would be the most catastrophic collapse ever. This team hasn't got it in them. That just doesn't have it in them.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how Liverpool conduct themselves.
There's one thing sitting here saying you're going to win the league every year. There's another one completely what you just said. I'm gripping this table.
There was talk in the dark days of a fortnight ago about, I think it was like Paul Merson and stuff was saying like Arsenal need to get to a situation where they're 3 points behind Liverpool when they come to Anfield, and then everyone, is that even possible? What does that look like? Oh God, that would be terrible if that happened. And that would still be problematic if they could get it to that. You know, we probably know we were in a bit of bother if that was the case. But, you know, in the lead up to that, we've got West Ham at home, Leicester away, and then we play Spurs at home, Chelsea away, and then we've got the Arsenal game, which would then leave us with just 2 more games of football to play afterwards.
Mate,
we're playing for the guard of honour here, really, and that's, you know, if we you know, by that point, hopefully, ideally.
What's everyone doing here? Are we away? Are we okay?
I don't know. I'm just looking at that Tottenham game going, if we are within 9 points of Tottenham, if they Arsenal within 9 points of us, Tottenham just lying down.
Yeah.
Party time with the Spurs fans.
They are turning up in Liverpool shirts. There's going to be 55,000 Liverpool shirts in the stadium for the first time.
I've already had Flav text saying, just keep winning.
You got any spare shirts there?
We'll lay them out on the chairs for you, lads. It's no problem. We'll throw them from the Annie Upper to you so you can all put them on. Like,
listen, I don't want us to talk about this is a procession, by the way. Is what I mean is I want that Liverpool Arsenal game to mean nothing competitively.
That's the first guard of honour. That's what we want.
Yeah,
we want the first guard of honour.
Precisely. Well, I don't want that game to give. I want it academic. By the time Arsenal come to Anfield, is what I'm saying. Not saying it will. I'm saying we all need that to be a case because there will be nothing better than them giving us the inaugural
You know that what's going to happen as well. Arteta's going to stand there and he's going to be maybe a part of it. He's going to put GoPros on all of their fucking heads, on all the Arsenal players, record it, and you know first day of pre-season he's got a fully edited Arsenal bird's eye view to gear him up for next season. You never want to feel like this again, lads. And he's got them all GoPro'd stood there on the side of the pitch like this prick. What the fuck is like? Arteta's just such a weirdo, man.
Can we just have our wallets back, please, mate? Come on, gobshite. Just in terms of how Liverpool go about the business of getting there, you know, I know there's an anxiety that comes with talking about things maybe going well for you, but in terms of the numbers that Liverpool are putting down right now, obviously I've said the top line league stuff, but our XG difference right now is plus 36.3. That means over the season so far, we have created a positivity within our XG of plus 36. That is 1.3 on average per 90. Arsenal are running at 0.72, which doesn't seem like a huge gap as such, Chris, but when you do the XG difference, we're closing in on plus 20 better than them over the course of the season so far, and that shows you the gulf in what Liverpool have been doing. And that's when you come into the world of the realms of extrapolation of it would take a collapse from Liverpool to make this even competitive again, almost.
Yeah, it would. And this Liverpool side, on average, hasn't looked like it's going to be able to collapse, has it? You know, that's what it comes down to. We've had poor games this season, and I think, you know, we were right to mention earlier about the Everton game and the Wolves game and all that type of stuff. But it comes down to what happens in those poor games. Sign of champions, everyone knows, is you win when you're playing badly. Mm-hmm. And we've won, generally speaking, or drawn when we've played badly. You know, when it comes down to wins and losses, that's where Liverpool will win the league this season, because we're turning those draws into wins, and we're not allowing those draws to become defeats. Yes. And that's where the other sides have all stumbled, isn't it?
Let's have a look at the player stats then. Obviously, Mo Salah leading the way as we enter into this final period.
Is that
25 in the Premier League?
Looks like he sponsors the Premier League. He's so involved.
Yeah. He is the banner advert for the Premier League at this point. Leading the way in terms of assists. He's 7 clear of Michael. He's 5 clear in goals from Erling Haaland, 6 clear of Isak. He's 7 clear of Michael Damsgaard. And Anthony Robertson's got 10, blimey. Yeah. And 7 clear of Bukayo Saka as well. And then, just out of interest, no one's completed more, or no one's made more passes in the Premier League than Virgil van Dijk. And I've had that in my head for a while. And watching the Newcastle game, it couldn't be more obvious why. We just give the ball to Van Dijk, and he just makes the team play from there. He's absolutely
well. If you bring that back up as well, by the way, Alisson plays a full season. He's probably top of that. He's 4th, isn't he?
Yeah, 4th, 8 clean sheets. Matt Sells is top with 11.
There's a good chance there's still a chance that he can top that.
Yeah.
And he's missed the course of the season.
Yeah, well, he's bagged 2 in a week. Yeah, so, you know, another couple of them. And he's
how much different would that page look with all Liverpool players at the top? Like, you know what I mean? Not much different.
25% better.
25%
better. In terms of some of the other bits and pieces, then, no one scored more goals in the Premier League than Liverpool, 66, which is 13 more than the second most side, who are Manchester City. We're not winning the tackles, unfortunately. Crystal Palace.
More Endo we need.
Bit more Endo.
More Endo, we'll soon be top of that.
Yeah, it goes back to that. What would this look like if Endo was playing every week for us? Tell you what, but you think about it, by the time if we can get through this PSG stuff, Endo could be a starter for Liverpool's Premier League team for like the final 10 games of the season, and we're only 100... No, we're 98 behind Crystal Palace at this point.
I think we can catch him.
Got 3 games for Endo?
I think we can catch him. We can definitely get the free kicks given away.
Yeah,
we can catch them.
You know, this is a stupid one, and it's something that you see in league tables, but you just you gloss past it because you look at points and you look at goal difference or whatever else catches your eye. We're top of the wins table as well. We've won 5 more games of football than Arsenal. And I know that there's a reason why we got a 13-point gap, but like that is stupid when you just look at it like that Liverpool have won 20 games of football this season and Arsenal have won 15. We have celebrated 5 more wins than they have. That's
4, and I'm not sure Wolves was as much a celebration as
We
anything.
left the stadium.
okay. Yeah.
Never felt worse walking out of with a win.
Absolute robber.
And I can't be bothered to go off the page, but we will be bottom of the loss table as well. So yeah, that's not.
Can you invert that so we're at the top anyway?
Yeah. It should be fewest defeats, right? That should
What was
be.
Southampton top of them? Was Southampton?
So they're at the top of the loss table.
Why have like a celebratory thing? I don't understand that.
I don't think
get
it's
that at all.
celebratory.
For shame.
No, but it is. It's like, you know, the banners there, the colour, the
Why? Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a bit nasty, that, isn't it? So yeah, very, very, very good indeed. All ticking along quite nicely for the Reds. The Champions League is back. Another competition for us to get our teeth into, and we're going to discuss Liverpool and PSG after the break. Hey you, do you like Liverpool Football Club? Do you love Liverpool signed merchandise? Well, have I got a prize for you this month? It is this absolute beauty. Let's start on the back. Let's show you the front. Yes, $89.90 replica shirt signed by John Barnes. Yes, John Barnes. That shirt can be yours. It's a very simple competition to enter. Head to redmenplus.com, sign up as a legend tier subscriber, and not only will you get full access to all of our amazing suite of content and our exclusive Discord group and discounted and free merchandise, you'll be in the prize draw to win that incredible shirt as well. redmenplus.com, legend tier status. Get on it. Hey, yes, welcome back. We had a couple of super chats in that first half, which I didn't cover. Enjoy Writing says, this is Liverpool's season, top of the mountain. Love a bit of that. And Ethshamal Hassan says, do you think the Forest loss is a blessing in disguise? Because no pressure of the invincible talk. I mean, for two things, Dan, I do have a real deep respect for that invincible thing. I know because of how big and loud Manchester United fans are, they have spent years trying to talk it down. We've now, when we look, I watched Liverpool complete the season with just one defeat, and it effectively came because of 3mm or whatever it was at the Etihad. But I quadruple talk is always damaging, and invincible talk, whenever that becomes a part of the media, and it normally happens in the last week of January and the first week of February, you almost always lose the game that follows, that ends one or the other, and often both. What thoughts on that? I tend to agree.
Yeah, I'm not in disagreement with it. I think when it first started reading that message, the blessing in disguise, it was more from the learnings on the Slot took from it than anything else, to be honest, as opposed to the invincible stuff. And back then, I wasn't even thinking about the possibility of being invincible, nor 13 points clear as we sit here today. But yeah, I get it. And I think there will be more pressure around each and every game from here until the end of the season, because likelihood is, chances are we might have the title wrapped up well in advance of the Arsenal game, but then we still have loads to play for, and maybe that puts too much of a burden, the stress on the squad for what we're doing in Champions League and stuff like that. So possibly, having said all of that, the competitive in me wants to be having that conversation and still being able to be invincible, you know what I mean? But yeah, it may well have been exactly as it's described.
Yeah, I think it's a decent one.
Well, to prove your point, I first uttered the word quadruple the week before we got beat by Plymouth.
100%.
Because when the FA Cup comes around, there's two up, that's why I always...
It has to be the quadruple stuff, doesn't it? Because you have to be in either the semi or the
final of the Carabao. FA Cup of that. Certainly when you get the draw, which was a bit of a plum draw, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It's normally, you're right. You get, because the third round's before the semi-finals of the League Cup. It's normally after the two legs of the semi-finals, so you've got one eye on a piece of silverware, and that kind of activates the conversation, and that is normally fourth round or fifth round of FA Cup, and often that's when you've got to that stage, and particularly if it's like the fifth round, you always think that can't be that far. It's miles away. But yeah,
just on the Forest thing, dead quick. Obviously, the international break was one thing, but it's interesting. I remember sitting here and in different studios and shows saying, like, that's the blueprint. We might have just seen a blueprint for how teams play against us and able to sort of nullify and counteract what we do. None of that. Like, absolutely none of that has been, which again just speaks to how adaptable and brilliant Arne Slot is.
Fucking AI Slot, mate. He learns quick, doesn't he?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he does.
You come up with a different plan, and he just sees what you're doing and goes, no.
Usually at half time, by the way.
There you go. Next.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just call him our Neo.
Yeah,
slot.
there you go. I like it.
Right, PSG. I'm going to move on quickly from that one. Champions League is back. It
That
is.
reference is so old though as well.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
yeah. It's still people get get Matrix. You get Matrix references, right? People at home, right? Come on. That second and third film, by the way, are absolutely atrocious. I watched them again recently.
Wordy.
Just boring for how noisy and loud and action-packed they should be, and most of the CGI looks PS2 at this point. But anyway, PSG, tough place to go. We struggled there, obviously years ago now in the group stage. I think we need to be careful here because there's a temptation with Paris Saint-Germain to go, I don't know who half of these lads are, and I'm just speaking from my own mind here. This should be fine because this isn't, Neymar, Mbappe.
Yeah, but
Messi,
they look like they've
etc.
moved on, don't they, from the Galacticos era, and they seem to be putting together a side that is probably greater than the sum of its parts, rather than a side of individuals. Is it Bacola?
Badi Bacola, yeah.
He is absolutely fucking sensational. Like, I really enjoy watching him from the bits I've seen so far and stuff. Now, they're clearly a good side. We've got the advantage in that we've got the second leg at Anfield. That's massive. They will be still, I think, living off the fact that when they had to do it, when it became almost knockout football for them a few games ago, that's when they were able to turn it on. The City game is where they're looking at, isn't it? Where they go, bloody hell, what a result that is. But I still think we're the favourites for the game for a reason. I think our players have got the nous to be able to get through over 2 legs. I think our manager has got the nous to be able to plan this as a European trip of 2 games. In fact, if anything, I think what I've learned about Slot over the last 6 months is he's definitely more Benitez than I gave him credit for when he came through the door. He feels like a manager who will have a little tinker here and there and plot out a sort of way through a 2-legged tie. So I'm actually really interested to see how he's going to approach it from a learning point from me as a fan again. Because I always find I don't know, it's just...
Is this based on our 2-legged tie that we've played under him so far?
No, it's based on the way City game as a perfect example. That's... I've set this up for a game of football that's essentially a one-off. So I think he's going to apply that logic to the 2 game stuff as well.
Go away and lose 1-0 and then batter them at home.
No. So I think he is a little bit more like that. You've seen tweaks in the formation and tweaks in the personnel, and whether it be different types of fullbacks or different midfielders getting further forward, or different or centre forwards being wingers, etc., etc. He feels a little bit more like a Tinkerman. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I know the atmosphere is going to be good in there. I know it's going to be even better at Anfield, and I actually back us to win both legs.
They're in good form. You can because of Liga, I could scroll back almost infinitely and find an infinite amount of positive results for Paris Saint-Germain. But the one thing that's interesting is that obviously, they beat Toulouse, which we struggled with last year, which is the thing. They seem to have. Obviously they had Brest, and one might say that with a 10-0 aggregate win, Dan, they really put the squeeze on Brest. But one might say that.
Yeah. I think a few people have said that, to be fair.
They won 7-0 in the French Cup quarterfinals in Stade Briochin, who I'd never heard of prior to that. They beat Lille 4-1 at the weekend. You can never truly gauge where PSG are at because that's forever their issue. They're too good for that league, and then sometimes they manage to translate that into good Champions League runs, but more often than not, they fall a bit short.
No, absolutely, that is accurate. They have a different proposition now to the one they once were, because as Chris rightly said, the whole philosophy and model of the football club has changed, really. They have gone down a completely different route. They've got rid of some of the star attractions, and they've formed a more balanced team side who actually work together and they want to play together, and they're all pulling the weight, it's fair to say. But yeah, you're right. I think they haven't been beaten since end of November. 10 so games, they're more than that. They're quite a long way now into a decent record. So yeah, whenever you think of what they're coming up against week in, week out, once a side's built that sort of momentum and inbuilt confidence, if you like, much in the way we talk about ourselves, that we don't get beat very often. That makes them a very dangerous opponent, I think. And they've got some quality within that as well. A much younger side, a side that doesn't have anything like the sort of experience of these sort of occasions and these sort of nights, which might stand us in better stead than them potentially. But yeah, if we get out of Paris unscathed, that'd be huge for me, because I think the second leg very much in our favour. This first, there's so much riding on this because they've got threats as well. You mentioned Barcola, obviously Dembele, Kvaratskhelia this time mid-season, so even further bolster that. They've got goals in their side, and Luis Enrique spoken, I think yesterday in terms of pre-match press conference, saying we'll go for them, we'll be our aggressive selves, we'll be front-footed, we'll play the want to play. They press man to man, they're at it. You know what I mean? They're high energy. This isn't the PSG we've become accustomed to in recent times. We need a bit of magic from Mbappe, Messi, Neymar, whatever. These are a team, a proper team, so it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because that Neymar magic, I remember thinking, I don't really get all this Neymar stuff, and then I remember watching him against us and being like, oh, right, yeah. It's good of him, isn't he? The Dembele stuff's mad because there's a lovely little like story in all of that he's obviously embroiled in the Neymar Barcelona transfer because he's like them scrabbling around to get players, and Coutinho becomes part of that. So the idea that obviously Dembele ends up at Paris Saint-Germain in a roundabout way, fronting the next generation after all of those stars that destabilised the market, and actually finding his feet. He's got 26 goals in all comps this season. So am I right though in remembering that he's the one who fluffs the chance to make it 4-0
right,
at the new camp?
Yeah.
Let's hope he's deeply scarred.
It's also important. I think Marquinhos at the back. They've got Kimpembe as well back there, and they've got William Pacho. They signed centre half wise. They're quite well stocked in that department as well. But Marquinhos is probably the most prevalent and interesting one because he is the experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Out of the very young side, the midfield's very very young. The attacking department, Dembele aside,
he's
is
the
also
captain,
quite
is he?
young. Yeah, he is, and he's the one they will turn to in particular nights like this, big European nights. Liverpool coming to town, Champions League favourites for a reason. Marquinhos will be key for them.
Has Hakimi been doing much? Because it doesn't feel like that long ago since he was another one of like, well, he's
Trent
better than Trent Alexander-Arnold and blah blah blah. Look at his numbers. He seems to be having a decent season, but it does feel like he's not being as talked about.
I think that's a fair point. I don't think he's quite as prominent in
I
their
think you
team,
take
though.
them lightly at your peril.
Yeah.
They are giving Enrique the chance that most managers don't get, which is to afford him 3 or 4 years to stamp his way on the club. And he's been crowing in the press, hasn't he, saying we don't feel like we're an inferior team, and you'd want your manager to say that. Mm-hmm. Some of that will transmit itself into the dressing room, and you're right, you've got to come out there with something to show for it, because it's a tough place to go. That's probably the most team essence PSG team we've seen for a dozen years.
And they used to win as well. Whatever you think of Liga, and rightfully they're a team that used to win, and certainly at home. You know what I mean? That's what they do. They just win at home, and they're in their environment. They don't fear anybody, including us. As much as we're taking the Premier League by storm, we took the Champions League massive group stage by storm. But yeah, this is not
bravado, is it? He
No.
means it. He means it. He genuinely thinks they've got an opportunity.
Yeah, the PSG thing's mad to me. There's like programs and books in this office that are older than that football club.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, I do enjoy, whether they're going through a more holistic approach to squad building or whatever. I do enjoy knocking teams like that, and also I remain scarred from the Cup Winners' Cup from all the way back in the 90s as well. So yeah, PSG can eat a shit. Team wise, Chris, I can't imagine there's going to be too many changes for Liverpool from that Newcastle game. They've had a week off. They basically almost went again with a couple of obviously iterations involved in that. The question will be, I would guess Gakpo will be a big question, and Jota, and therefore Diaz in that. It's going to be it will be 2 from 3 from them, you would imagine, and that's barring injury. That's it, really.
Yeah, I think Robertson's probably going to come back in, isn't he? I fancy that if Gakpo's fit, I fancy that he moves back to Diaz up front, especially if they do play a man-to-man system, because you're then asking the centre-back to follow the centre-forward in, and I think that becomes a difficult thing. Cause it's all well and good saying we're going man-to-man across the pitch, but when your centre-half starts ending up in the centre circle, you question your own tactics a little bit there, so you might...
when Marquinhos is doing 90-yard sprints chasing it, well,
you might find quite quickly that it's man-to-man up until a point, and then Diaz becomes a free man in the centre of the pitch. I like the idea of something like that. Or even if it's a case of dragging him in and Salah running in behind into that space that he's vacated, maybe there's a little pass over the top there for him. Trent will be on there applying pressure through his passing. So I think generally speaking, we know what our best side is, don't we, at the moment? And the midfield is going to be, barring injury, it's going to be Gravenberch, it's going to be Szoboszlai, and it's going to be McAllister. And Szoboszlai's got 4 in his last 8 now. 4 goals in his last 8 appearances across all comps. That's like starting to get to centre forward, like number
1980s, 1990s, you're a world class centre forward numbers 1 and 2.
Yeah, so 4 and 8 ain't bad for a centre midfielder at all.
It's exactly what the doctor ordered, isn't it?
Isn't it?
What Slot said, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just to play, if anyone's willing to play devil's advocate on this, please feel free to shut down. I'll do it myself. But Jota, I mean, we'll find out, I guess, in the coming weeks. He's clearly been playing. He's back fit.
Yeah.
We draw him in the game against Newcastle. He's the centre forward when the season starts, and it would be interesting to see whether Slot's thinking on the pecking order has changed any from the lads who have been fit and available. Because I totally agree with Chris. I think it seems, on what we've seen in recent weeks, it makes far more sense that Gakpo will come back in on the left and Diaz will go centre. But is Jota still our first choice number 9 is the question, if he's fully fit.
And you could apply the Leverkusen logic to the game as well, where you've got 2 domineering centre-backs who like to stay at home and win balls played in and around the edge of the box. That said, Jota's massively improved in terms of coming deep and picking up the ball and bringing other people into the game. A few years ago, that was a criticism of his game where he needed to improve, a critique rather than a criticism, and it's improved. The Diaz hat-trick against Leverkusen is kind of a blueprint, as to coin Dan's phrase from before, where we might get some joy in your point about dragging centre-backs where they don't want to go. Hakimi is remembered for his forays forward, not what he does defensively. I don't even know their left-back.
Nuno Mendes and the same.
So you look at those 2 and you think, right, so you've got Gakpo can have anyone on toast because he's bounce off him, don't they? You've got Salah on the other side, speaks for himself, and then you're going to be clever in what you do in the middle. You want to be pulling them all over the place. You want to have them thinking defensively. That's how you undermine what Luis Enrique thinks they are, is to give them questions they can't answer defensively, where that plan they've got goes, at your point there, that plan they've got goes out the window within 10 minutes and you think, well, okay, we've got to do something different because that guy's in 20 yards of space. And we know Diaz likes a shot from distance. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, really is. And one thing Slot has done is that we always feel like we're just starting to get to grips with what he's definitely going to do, and then he'll just pull something else.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? We could see a City-esque performance where we give them the ball and go on, break us down, and we'll hit it on the counter-attack and try and get goals there.
Well, I mean, this leads us into the Southampton conversation a bit, Chris, it's whether he sees this as he'll figure Southampton out from what's left after this game, or is it a bit of a thing of he can afford to do what he did against Man City, and by that I mean play as 4 midfielders from the start, and then you means you're more inclined to use Endo at the weekend because you should be able to rotate a bit more for Southampton and still get to the same sort of level.
Yeah, I think the Southampton game being in Anfield's a big help to us, isn't it, as well? Obviously, less travelling and all that in between PSG games, so that's interesting for us. I think there will be rotation. You can probably, you can almost guarantee that maybe Tsimikas features in that game, and Curtis Jones, if he doesn't features in the midfield potentially. Jota might feature if he doesn't feature, against PSG. I think he'll have one eye on it, but ultimately it's what condition are the lads in at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And if you come out of Paris with an advantage, a lead, a comfortable lead, and we're capable of that, we all know that, then these lads have had a week off, so you could double up. I
think it's one of those, isn't it, Steve, where you don't want to sound arrogant ahead of it, but you couldn't really have cherry-picked the better fixture to play in between these.
For me, it's got banana skin wrote all over. Because of that, though, it's not, but because of that.
This is the team. Look, yeah, I look, all superstition and touching wood and all that kind of shit aside, this is the team on the pathway to breaking the record for the least points in the Premier League season.
Top of the least wins.
Top of the least wins table.
You'll never sing that.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
At Anfield. And so it does we don't know what slot psychology will be on it, but it does mean that it does give him a bit more. If you're creating a balance of what quality side you can use, it's much more he can go 100% flat out in midweek if he really wants to, and he could theoretically go far weaker than if we had almost any other team in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, he could, and yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it?
No, I think it's fair. Yeah.
If you asked us,
drawn on my point.
If you asked us all to pick a team to play following on from Paris, we would all say Southampton purely because of the numbers speak for themselves. But we've all spent the last sort of hour building up, and waxing lyrical about how controlled we are and how sensible we are and how we work with the manager to be something different to sort of an emotive team and play with patterns of play and a bit of logic and a bit of control. So by proxy of that argument, Southampton shouldn't really be the round skin that you think it is, because we approach life differently now, don't we?
Yeah,
our favourite side, we're more comfortable in our favourite side, like I say, yeah. But I think Southampton not only...
Kwanzaa right back?
Who?
Kwanzaa right back?
No, I never want to see that again.
If I do, it'll be too soon.
I'm really not a fan of that. I'm really not.
Just on that thing of what you could theoretically do is the team that starts Newcastle could almost start the game at the weekend if we really wanted to, and that's to say, as you said there, Jota comes in, Gakpo could drop out, Tsimikas would come in, and then you've made a couple of changes. You've got the option to make one or two more, but it being Southampton, you could. That's what I'm saying. You could make 5 for the weekend. Willie. We'll have to see. And as mentioned earlier on in the show, Arsenal play United away in that game, and given the choice, I would rather us have I'd rather have PSV than PSG if we're talking about that difficulty balance. But if you were trying to balance out how you manage your way through a 2-legged tie, you'd have Southampton at home over Manchester United.
What you
away
do actually is you would get your laptop out, you would go to the Premier League website, and you'd go to the team that has the most losses on the season, wouldn't you? That's the way that you'd work it through. Should we do that now and see?
Yeah. Just to reiterate, just in case. Right. I don't want to shock you too badly, but with 22 losses this season,
I'll take them. Whoever it is.
Southampton. You've made it worse. That's well worse. I feel bad now. I feel so much worse for having done it that way.
Who's their manager?
Who?
Moore.
I know.
Is it Moore?
Yeah, who's the manager? Do you know?
No.
Amazing. Juric, Juric, yeah. I just wondered if these guys, we don't know them. That's where we're at with Southampton, by the way. Just to the point.
Mate, I don't think I've known who Southampton's manager is.
Pochettino.
It's
Nigel Atkins.
Nigel.
Hassan Husserl threw himself on the floor and cried after they beat us, remember?
Yeah. Right, okay, we've got another podcast still to come, so if you want the conversation to continue, but you want it to be largely about us laughing about Manchester United, then we've got a show for you. It's called the Bias Football Pod. It's over on redmenplus.com, and we're going to give you a code that gets you it and everything we do over there for free. Head to redmenplus.com. Choose a captain tier subscription. Use the code POD, P-O-D, simple as that. Rob's your father's brother, and you will get a free month of Redmen Plus. It's going to carry you through the League Cup final and well into the tearing charge, hopefully, towards number 20 and number 7 as well. We hope to see you guys over there. But that's it for us. For the Originals podcast, we'll see you for another one next week.